Hello there everybody, my name is Derailious, welcome back to another video. So recently on Hypixel Skyblock, a lot of people have been throwing their hat into the ring about the whole, is there inflation in the economy, is there not inflation, is it good, is it bad? I kind of wanted to give my own personal opinion because, who doesn't love personal opinions in this day and age? So yeah, that's really going to be the gist of this video. It's going to be a little different, and I'm going to try not to do these often. I don't want to turn into a channel that just spouts, Today I will talk about Hypixel Skyblock, not give you any advice, and just sort of ramble about the game, because if I wanted to ramble, I could just become a devlogger. But anyway, fellas, before we begin, I do want to make the note, only about 10% of you guys are subscribed, so if you guys click that button down below, it means a lot. As well, we have a Twitch channel where a lot of Hypixel Skyblock stuff is streamed, so if you want to check that out, it really does mean a lot. Without further ado, let us get into the discussion about, inflation. Yeah, woo, inflation. So yeah, let's begin. So to start, we're going to begin with the most basic point. Is there inflation in the Hypixel Skyblock economy? And the answer is kind of. The reason why the answer is kind of is because obviously, as in most things, inflation in the economy comes in a lot of different forms, and if you've taken any level of basic economics class or like any sort of look at like a government's GDP or like the way that per capita income works, which are all terms you probably won't know if you're like 9, you will know that inflation is the part of every economy in the world, and it happens at a rate of about 2% per year in the US and in most other countries. Now, in Hypixel Skyblock, the rate's much higher. I would say that the rate in Hypixel Skyblock of inflation is closer to about 40 to 50% per year. That isn't ridiculously high, but it's high, I guess. But I don't imagine it getting much higher than it is now, and I can't imagine it being another 40% in the next year. I can see a lot of the volatility this year being because the game is still new, and because a lot of things are being added. And as other new things get added, the price of those items will rise temporarily and then fall after. The number one argument that I have against the Hypixel Skyblock inflation being bad thing happens to be in the form of new player items, and I'll go show that off right now. So if you come over to the auction house and you go over here and you look up an aspect of the end, aspect of the ends are only about 165,000 coins. That is not much less than what they were worth a year ago or when the game first came out. I don't think a aspect of the end has been worth less than 100k ever, and it really hasn't been worth like less than 150k ever, I don't think. And the same goes for a lot of early game items, or at least the ones that are still achievable. I would really like to use the Ember Rod as an example, but they stopped giving away the Ember Rod for some reason, so now it's impossible to get. But basically a lot of the early game talismans are a good example of this too. Even though there's inflation in the economy, it hasn't really touched the very early game. Minor armor and ender armor is also a great example. Those prices have simply collapsed. A lot of people in their videos are referring to this as inflation, when in reality that's not what inflation does. Inflation doesn't mean that you pay less. That would be deflation. That would be the reverse. And that's not what's happening. What's happening in the case of things like minor and ender and lapis armor is that people are getting absurd amounts of the items and just have no use for them, because who wants to use lapis armor any amount into the late game? So they just sell them, and because everyone's doing that, the price is nothing, and that's okay, and that's how cheap commodities work. If you're going to buy a case of water, it's not going to be $30 because, well, there's a lot of water on the planet, or at least if you're in a first world country there is, so there's not really much of a problem there. And I don't really see why people are bringing up the point that, like, the price of items are increasing as, like, a way to say that there's massive inflation when sometimes it's okay because other items' prices are decreasing. Another big problem I have with the whole inflation is happening and is bad and is killing the economy argument is the fact that even though inflation is happening, that's not necessarily a sign of a doomed economy. Notably because a lot of the prices of items are actually getting lower over time, not increasing. The only big exception to this rule is probably superior armor, which price has went up from like 50 mil to 65 mil in the last 3 months. And that's just because Superior has become more attainable by more people due to the more routes to get items and money. That doesn't necessarily mean, though, that there's massive inflation. That just means that the prices are getting bigger to accommodate the fact that there's more coins in circulation. I would say that, like, the reason why inflation occurs in something like a developed country like America is not necessarily because there is more money in circulation, but because people are being paid more, and those may sound the same, but are slightly different. It's not that the bank is directly handing out money to more people, like what's basically happening in Skyblock. It's kind of different. It's that the money is being transferred between people in greater frequency, which means that the value of items has gone up because of that. And in Skyblock, the reason for us having more money is not due to, I don't know, us getting paid more. It's rather because the bank, or the game, is opening up new options for us to earn money at. Because of that, the price of some items are going to go up, but the price of others that are being in higher circulation, things like, I don't know, Reaper Scythe, for example, is a great choice of item. The price of that item is completely collapsed, and that makes sense. Also, the argument that, like, there are price floors, which means that the game is collapsing in its economy, is kind of dumb. Notably because price floors are a thing that just keep things with little value from being completely worthless. If we had no limit on the value of snow and how low it could go, and you couldn't sell it, snow would be useless, and so would snow minions, because who would want one of those? And the same goes for clay minions. Having a price floor on those things, which is what they're sellable at the trader, keeps the market alive. It is not at all killing it. Because in a real market, I could promise you that if hundreds of thousands of people were just producing snowballs in a real world market, and snowballs obviously have no legitimate real world value unless you want to punch somebody in the face with them, the price of those things are going to drop to zero, and you're not going to be able to make any money, even though you might be putting a lot of effort into it. Finally, there's the topic of minions, and that's a whole different story, but people have to understand that the price of actually leveling up minions and putting value into them costs more than they will make in a year. So only just now are people starting to profit on their massive investments into minions, and that's something I don't think people understand. You're spending about 1 million coins per minion base when it comes to things like your fuel and then also your super compactors, not to mention the fact that you have to actually upgrade every single minion, which costs an extra 500 to 1 mil depending on the type. And you put all that together and you're spending about 50 to 75 mil on minion upgrades, which could be spent on literally anything else. And at that point, you're just kind of going to show that, like, even though you're making a lot of money off of your minions, you do have to spend a lot to make a lot, and that's something that's okay. Not to mention the fact that there's, like, so many ways to lose money or, like, just drain money from the economy in Skyblock, like Slayers, like dungeons, for example, being the two big ones, that, like, I don't see the economy somehow collapsing, and I don't know what this community hype over it collapsing is. People are freaking out about Scorpius. I can promise you that Scorpius is not going to be that big of a deal for the economy, because A, new players are going to use the 50k or however much they get to buy new items, and that's fine, because the price of items hasn't ever been determined by the amount of money they have. They always had enough. It's just based off of how willing are they to go up and up in price on the auction house. So that's not going to change. And secondly, you have to understand that rich players aren't going to spend this 1 mil frivolously the moment they get it. Rich players are just going to put it back in their bank so they can get more interest, or just spend it on leveling up a minion or something. It's really kind of dumb to see this, like, million coins as, like, a game changer that's going to crash the economy. When if every single person who got Skyblock, or has Skyblock and has played it recently, so let's say 100k people, gets 1 million coins, 100k times 1 million is what, like 100 billion? Am I doing that math right? I'm going to do the math on my phone real quick. Give me a second. 100,000 times 1,000,000. 1 times e to the 11, and that's, no, that's 100 billion. No, I was right. Okay, that's pretty cool that I was right about that. Anyway, that's 100 billion coins. In total, in the Skyblock economy, there's probably about like 7 trillion coins. Adding 100 billion all at once might make a subtle difference, but you have to understand that that's a difference of way under 10%. And I highly doubt everyone's going to spend that on like stupid bullshit immediately. I don't think everyone's going to rush out to try to get a $1 million Midas sword or something dumb. You also have to realize that with the dark auctions coming out and being upgraded, people are probably going to want to spend their money on that before anything else, which means that more money will once again be leaving the economy, because dark auctions are one of the best ways to melt money out of the economy. I would honestly think that Scorpius is probably going to pull more money out of the economy than he's going to add. So yeah, this was surprisingly one of my easiest videos to make because, I don't know, I'm really passionate about economics and I'm really kind of dumbfounded by the amount of people just saying things that are just not correct in the slightest. So yeah, if anyone has any questions about anything I said in this video, feel free to hit me up down below. Thank you guys so much for 1.5k and 1.6k hopefully by the time we're reading this, which is insane. Let's hit 2k, fellas. And yeah, don't send any hate to any YouTubers though. They're all giving their opinion. I'm just giving mine. My opinion is the economy's gonna be fine. So yeah, I know that doesn't really make for a clickbait thumbnail, but you know what? It's fine. Tomorrow I can clickbait you guys with the whole dark auction thing. At least I'm honest about it, fellas. So yeah, on that note, I'm going to end off this video here. Don't fret too much about the economy. It'll be fine. Prices will go up, prices will fall, but things will always remain at a relative equilibrium because people don't like paying too much for things that they don't want. And if the price is high, that means people want it. Surprise, surprise, superior is worth a lot. You know? And on that note, thanks so much for watching. My name's Derailious. I'll see you guys next time.